What up, and welcome back to another review of Dexter Original Sin, Season 1. This time we're doing episodes 7, 8, and 9. A lot has happened, and I'm going to do a summary, not a review, necessarily, I don't think. But I have been watching the show. That's just, there was a lot of technical problems that happened, and I'm not going to get into. So I had to delay everything. I spent a lot of money and for nothing. And then I resolved my problem, so... Anywho, here we go. Here's episode 7. It was titled Big Bad Problem. And I will say from the beginning of this episode, I disliked it. I thought it was comical. It was cheesy. I didn't like anything. So Dexter was caught, last we saw he was caught with, well, he wasn't caught yet. He went to drop off a body at the swamp. Levi Reeds yeah, I think that's his name. He went to drop off that body that he killed for Harry. And there was a crime scene because they found the leftover body of Antonio Ferrara, or whatever his name is, Angel Ferrara. They found his hand. So it was a crime scene, and he was like, uh-oh, in the Everglades. So we're like, uh-oh, that was a good little anticipation, but it started out whack because he's like, I'm Miami Metro, I'm here. Oh, okay, they let him in. And then he has to take fingerprints of the hand. And instead of doing that, he pretends like somehow with all these cops around, LaGuerta, Masuka, everybody's there. He pretends like an alligator jumped out and ate the hand. He was like, ah! It was so corny. And then he dumps off the Levi Reed's body, or Levi Reddy, whatever his name is. I think it's Levi Reed. He dumps his body. It's in the trunk of his car this entire time. The next morning, he drops off that body in a dumpster. And then I was like, this is, I don't know. I didn't like it anymore. It was very, 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 very dumb. Dexter's constantly getting messages from Sophia. She's being an annoying girlfriend. And Deborah's like, when's the last time you spoke to her? And he's like, oh, this is our double date. And she's like, you haven't talked to her since she sucked your... And he was like, I didn't know I was supposed to. She was like, oh my God. That was funny. That was funny. And then he smells like garbage all the time. Christian Slater comes in, and they're talking about how Deborah's going to get that scholarship, most likely because she's the captain of the volleyball team. Great. She leaves. Harry and Dexter start talking outside about exactly what happened. And he's like, what? He's like seeing like Dexter's kind of being reckless. And he's like, you're not following any of my directions or anything like that. Yada, 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 yada. And then he goes like, you had a body in the back of your car. What if you needed to drive somebody home and they smelled the body, or what? Like, you don't still have the body in there now. He's like, no, I got rid of it. And he was like, oh God. Anyway, we got a flashback. Laura Moser and Harry break up. Harry goes home. He wants to tell his wife. I mean, she knows he was cheating and who the person was. No, not really, because he wants to tell her exactly how it happened. And she's like, I don't want to hear this. And he's like, you have to know if we're going to be a family or whatever. And then he's like, she forgives him, basically. Doris Morgan forgives Harry for cheating on her, which is, pretty admirable on her part. This woman is kind of a saint, especially as we see this as the next few episodes go on. She's kind of really great. It's sad. I want to see what her relationship was like with Dexter. That's what I really want to see, because they never delved into that, and I would like to see how that was. Sophia shows up at Dexter's house, starts making out with him, and because she's like, why are you avoiding me? He's like, oh, I wasn't. Last night I had to go, at the crime scene or whatever. And then she finds the condom. She breaks up with him. Okay, she leaves Deborah stranded at the house. Deborah goes to school. She's like, what the hell, Sophia? I had to hitchhike from some weird dude that kept making me listen to Steely Dan. And then she's like, Dexter's cheating on me. He's like, and Sophia, Deborah starts laughing because she's like, Dexter's not cheating on you. Dexter, he doesn't even think about sex. Like, Dexter's a weirdo. And then she's like, I can't believe you're taking your brother's side over me. And Deborah's like, well, I can't always take your side. Plus, I know my brother. He's not doing this. So they have a falling out. I was like, uh-oh, whatever. Didn't really care about this. I will say another thing I want to add to this is that some of the acting, and not between these two, not this scene, no, actually sometimes Deborah is a little cheesy, but I like her a lot. I like the actress that plays her. I think she's a very good Jennifer Carpenter. I think she's perfect as Deborah Morgan. She has the smile. She's just perfect. I think she's very, very, very good. So I don't have a really issue with her, although sometimes there are some scenes that she struggles in, but she's a fine actress. There are other actresses that, like, sometimes I'm like, why did they cast them? Like, Laura Moser is pretty terrible. many times, pretty bad. And so is Doris Morgan. There's times where she's pretty bad too. But then there's scenes where okay, she excels in. So like it's a mixed bag. It'll be like one whole scene, majority of the scene that goes through, she's terrible, and then at the end she's okay. And that's what happened here. Anyway, so we cut to Nikki Spencer being in like, it looks like a shipping container, kind of, or not a shipping container, like a boat. Like he's in a boat, some abandoned boat or whatever. He's in a locked door or whatever. And he's being fed, you know, Lunchables before they were called Lunchables, I suppose. And he's like, come in here, give it to me, you fuck. You know, he curses out the guy. The guy opens the door, goes in, but Nikki was like, he somehow got some wire and was shaving it down so it'd be pointy. So he attacks his kidnapper. The kidnapper then hits him, turns him around, grabs his arm, and snips his fucking finger off. So Harry and LaGuerta go to Spencer and tell Spencer that they believe that their killer, the 3 deaths that LaGuerta has been tasked to, her cases, that she thinks they're connected through a serial killer, and the serial killer's he's escalating. And Spencer's like, this is ridiculous. And Harry stands up for her and says, I think she's onto something, and I think it needs pursuing. So they both follow up on a lead about a car. And they go, and from there, they find out that the person that actually sold the car to that person, he lived somewhere, you know, Tampa or somewhere else. So they have to take a road trip over there the next day. So that's what's going to happen the next day. Deborah punches her teammate. Her teammate comes in and finds out because Sophia ratted her out that they're the ones that stole her car and put it on the beach. And she's like, my car wouldn't start because you and your fucking boyfriend, hotwired my car. And she's like, Deborah's like, you told her? And she's like, well, she was going to call the cops. I had to. And then she's like, I can't take your side all the time, Sophia tells Deborah. And Deborah's like, ugh. And then the girl, the teammate, says, ugh, looks like you shouldn't be the team captain. So you have no friends now and whatever bullshit, and pushes Deborah. Deborah just goes, bam, punches her in the nose and gets kicked off the team. This leads to later on in the episode, Harry and Deborah having a confrontation about this because Harry's like, why are you home? You're supposed to, don't you have the game? She's like, I got suspended and kicked off the team. And she was like, I think she got kicked off the team. Just know she was suspended for sure. And Harry's like, what? You need to get the scholarship. I can't afford to play. She goes, well, I guess I won't go to college. And Deborah and then he goes, if you go out that door, you're grounded. And Deborah's like, let me get this straight, Dad. If I leave this house, then I can't leave this house. That's good. And she leaves. And she's alone. That's what I get most about Deborah throughout this entire season, is that since her mom died, she's got nobody. She can't connect with her dad. She's got nobody, really. But we'll see. She does have one person, which is interesting where that's going to go too. The finger's brought to Metro PD, and everyone's investigating this. Dexter finds that there's blood in the bottom of the box of the finger. He wants to do an analysis of this, thinking that it's not the same blood from the finger. It might be the killer's blood. So they test that blood. And Spencer finds out about this, and he's excited. All right, Laura Moser gets word that Estrada wants to meet her. Harry's excited, and then she's like, well, then what happens now? Oh, well, she wants to leave, first of all. She wants to stop this whole thing earlier on in the episode. She's tired of this relationship, and he's like, well, then I gotta put you in jail, which is kind of fucked up considering, Harry banged this woman and all this stuff. I was like, so anyway, later on, Laura Moser gets word that Estrada wants to meet her in person. She tells Harry's excited about this, and he's like, this is it, we're gonna get him. And it's kind of like Dexter comes out, he's like, Daddy. He goes, that's not your daddy. And she's like pissed off. She's like, just go, Harry. And then Harry's like, oh. But later on this episode, I believe it's episode 7, I could be wrong because my notes are all over the place because I had to go back and rewatch these episodes so I could talk about this. We get to see Laura Moser's
big fucking tits.
Yeah, they were fantastic. The guy who played Estrada, who's supposed to be another character actor, I was like, this guy is terrible acting. He's not reminding me of the Estrada character, but it could be this episode or the next episode. I don't remember, but all I know is he was awful. He was terrible. And he's trying to find out why Laura Moser's doing this, and she gives a half-ass excuse why she wants to be a drug kingpin. And he's like, okay, keep an eye on her. Because he made her get naked in order to go into the pool so he could make sure she's not wearing a wire. which is good that they took call her randomly, because if she would have went home first, got the wire, she would have fucked. Yeah, so that's that. He wants her to join him in going to the shipping to see how the business fully works. So he invited her somewhere. So it's getting close to, you know, everything's gonna wrap up with this storyline very soon. And let's see. To learn more about the operation, Estrada asks Laura to meet him to learn more about the operation. Deb leaves the house and goes with Gio. These are my notes. And lastly, Dexter discovers, this is when the episode really got good, besides seeing Laura Moser's
Big fucking tits.
It got really good when Dexter discovers, he goes into his office and he sees Spencer's there with the blood analysis to see if it's the killer's blood or if it's Nikki's blood. And then he basically says it's the same type of blood as my son's. It's my son's blood or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, well, blah 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 blah. And then he goes, well, there's one thing I did discover. There's a hesitation mark on the finger when he cut it. And he goes, what do you think that means? Captain Spencer says. And he goes, oh, it could be that he either feels a connection with Nikki or something else or whatever, and he didn't want to do it, blah, blah. And then he goes, oh, Dexter notices Spencer has a cut on his arm, and dun, 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 Spencer is the kidnapper. And Dexter's like, what? And that's when the episode really got good at the end. I was excited, and I was like, oh, now, okay, because the whole episode was kind of like boring drama. Didn't care for it. But that part, really big highlight. There's only 2 points of episode 8 or 7 that were really good, and that's Laura Moser's
Big fucking tits.
And this. Episode 8, Business and Pleasure. Spencer, it starts out with Spencer getting drugged by his father. His father is drugging him because he knows that Spencer might attack him or whatever. And then Spencer's son, Nicky, he says, Dad, like he kind of senses that it is his dad, which is weird. I guess the smell, he could smell his father. Yeah, and it's kind of fucked up. Dexter tries to tell Harry about Spencer, and Harry goes off. And I felt bad at this point, but also not, because remember, I dislike Dexter because he was kind of being a shithead. Like, I'm like, he's kind of using his father. He's not really that good. And you see, at this point, he's actually being honest with his dad and telling him, like, listen, Dad, like I think it's Spencer. He had a cut, whatever. He goes, I had a cut. Harry goes off on him because he's like, I've known him, like, forever. You will never know what it's like to lose a child. So whatever. So Harry kind of really ticks him off, and Harry's upset that Deborah is missing. She did not come home last night when she left with Gio. So he asks Dexter also, well, how old is Gio? Finds out he's 25 years old, and Harry's like, I thought he was in high school. Like, you have to go get your sister back. So that day, Harry goes with LaGuerta to the city, and we see Miguel Prado is there. Doesn't look like him at all either. It's terrible casting for, like, I was gonna say Jimmy Smits. I was gonna say Bobby because Jimmy Smits' character in NYPD Blue was Bobby. But Jimmy Smits, that doesn't look like Jimmy Smits. That doesn't look like a young Jimmy Smits. And this in the 90s too. He was tall, handsome. You know, you cast this guy. How horrible. You couldn't look at a picture of Jimmy. He looked almost the same. Jimmy Smits from the 90s looks almost the same as Jimmy Smits from when he did Dexter. It's just a little bit, you know, overweight. Not even overweight, you know. Just a bigger guy compared to how skinny he was when he was on NYPD Blue. Ridiculous. Yeah, so they're going to look for their suspect. The suspect, that's where Harry and LaGuerta went to go. We get a flashback of Harry and Laura. They meet at a park, and Laura tells him that she's going to see how the operation works. She's going to meet him for a shipment or whatever, and Harry's excited that this is it. It's all going to be over. And then Dexter comes around and ruins it for everybody. Dexter's kind of the reason why they all get fucked, because Dexter comes around, he's like, push me on the swing, and then, you know, Harry's like, oh my god, he's like nervous, and then he's like, okay, he looks around, he's like, all right, come on, kid. And we see that Estrada's people were monitoring Laura, because last episode they said keep an eye on her, and they're watching her, and they found out that she's working for Sergeant Morgan, so they know everything about Harry too at this point, which is kind of weird. Yeah, so this is terrible. Harry tells Dexter to find Deborah. Dexter follows Spencer. Yes. So this is what the episode was. I like, because I like detective type stuff, and Dexter knows that Spencer is the killer he suspects, and he needs more proof because his dad basically told him like, enough, I don't want to hear about this, find your sister. And he's like kind of like, like, okay, but he wanted to prove to his dad that's his theory, or he could sense this dark passenger in other people, so he follows Spencer. Spencer drives away, leaves the office, and we see Spencer goes to a junkie and hands the junkie a bag and a wad of money. The junkie takes the bag and the money and goes in his car, and Dexter decides not to follow Spencer but to follow the junkie. Dexter follows the junkie to a house. The junkie goes to the house but puts the shirt, the bag, or spoiler, puts the bag behind his back in his shirt, goes into the house that we see that it's some Spanish guy opens the door and lets the junkie inside. So Dexter's kind of like, he doesn't understand what he just saw or what's going on or what Spencer's doing, but he knows something's off. He goes to call his dad. His dad and LaGuerta are waiting for police to come to the suspect's house because they went and they saw that there was a crime scene at the house of the suspect that they're looking for. So they had to call the local PD to come open the door. He has a car phone. So Dexter calls him on the car phone and he's like, what'd you find out? And he's like, what? And he's like, about your sister, like, where is she? He's like, yeah, he went to talk to Sophia. That was a cute little scene in high school where he goes over there and Sophia's pretending she got a new boyfriend when she doesn't. And Dexter basically asks her, like, where's my sister? And she's like, I don't know, we don't talk anymore. He's like, what? Like today? He's like, no, like anymore. Why? He's like, she's pushing everybody away, blah, blah, which is not true. She's just, Sophia's a dumbass. And Dexter's like, she's like, she says the last name is Martino for Gio. So Dexter, Harry tells her, like, listen, the only thing I care about, because he's like, I followed Spencer, and Harry goes off on him again. He's like, the only thing you need to be looking for right now is your sister, okay? He's missing his child. He's looking for his child. I'm looking for my child. Do me a favor. Stop with your serial killer nonsense and find your sister. And he's like, he's got to do what his dad wants him to do because Dexter's kind of a sucker. LaGuerta and Harry discovered that the guy that they're looking for was murdered in his house, which all that means is that the person who murdered him probably took his car, drove it back to Miami, and sold it to the people that that they first went to their house to see if they the first people. And so they're like, well, who is there any suspects? He goes, yeah, 300. The guy was a psychiatrist, so we're looking at all his patients. So like, do you think we could like look over? So yeah, they go to the police station, look over all the file names of all the patients, and Harry comes across that one of the patients is Brian Moser, and it's like, holy shit. Then we cut to flashback, and I think it could be wrong anyway. Laura is getting her fingernails painted different colors, like the ice truck killer used to do with all the fingernails of his victims, and they get a shot as people come in and they kidnap Brian, Dexter, and Laura, and they leave. Deb and Gio they bang, and then they discover and then this is the side story, the B story, whatever, or C story with Deborah. So Deborah and Gio's like, I have to do something for my father. We're going to Bimini Island or whatever the fuck it is, whatever. I don't know where Bimini is. And Deborah goes, I wish I could go, but I don't have a passport. And he goes, you don't need one with me or whatever. So she goes, okay, great. So they go, they partying. He has like his private yacht. It's not a yacht really. It's like a small boat, but whatever. They go and they go to Bimini and they're partying or whatever. And then she notices that, there's something being taken to his boat. She mentions it and he's like, don't worry about it. It's nothing. And she's kind of like, oh, okay. And then they're doing drugs and partying and dancing. And those goofy dancing is terrible because, they don't dance with real music playing in the background. So whatever. And then later on, she goes on the boat. She went to look for her jacket while she tells Gio that she's in love with him. And he doesn't say anything to her. He just kisses her. And then she goes onto the boat and she sees these basically drugs. He's importing drugs for his dad. Gio shows up and throws her off and says, like, you're done, forget it. But that's really because while this is happening, Dexter found out where Gio lived, went to the apartment and found out that Gio's engaged, and his fiance says, yeah, he probably, if he goes to Bimini, he's taking her for a business trip, but it's also a fuck trip, and he's probably fucking your sister. And then Dexter's like, okay, use your phone. but she goes crazy and she's pissed off and she's stranded in this place with no way to get back home. Dexter takes a slice of pie to go get Deborah. A slice of pie is his boat in the original series, and it's Camila's boat. So she lets him borrow it, and he goes to take it. Also, the reason why Dexter decided to follow Spencer is because after Spencer knew that Dexter kind of had these theories and everything, and that kind of was like onto him. That's when Spencer decided to give him all these cold cases to see if Dexter could solve, kind of keep Dexter busy. But Dexter's like, why would he want me to do all this? He's like suspected him more, followed him. Harry, yeah, this is when we go flashback to Harry and Bobby discovering that Laura and the kids have been kidnapped, and he believes that they're the storage container, and he's going crazy. Dexter and Deborah have another moment together because while Deborah's screaming that she's on the island, like, fuck, Dexter shows up and Dexter's like, Deb, and then she's like, oh. So Dexter picks up Deborah from the island and they have another bonding moment. And I wrote something here, I think I want to remember. They are kind of building to that sexual, incestuous relationship because she has nobody and nothing. And then and not just because he says, well, you have me or whatever, because there's a thing like they both know each other, they both understand each other, they both know how their dad is like and what their dad expects of them, and their dad expects them to be kind of different people. And at the same time, like Dexter's like, well, I get you, like I understand you, and like she's like, great, my freak brother understands me, which is cute. And it's cute. It's not like it's the reason why I write is building up to that incestuous relationship, because we all know in season 7 or 8, that's when Deborah all of a sudden was in love with Dexter and wanted to bang him, and she it was so stupid. And we kind of see how does she get to that conclusion? They have to make it make sense, right? Because the first few seasons that never made any sense how it jumps to that, and it jumps to that because I guess through all the times Dexter's always there for her there, we see how that's building up from the beginning, from back then when they were younger, which is weird or whatever, but I kind of felt like they were building to that relationship. But then they go home to bond because Deborah has nobody. Like I said, she has nobody but Dexter in her life. Nobody right now. She goes back home and they want to have pizzas and hang out, but Dexter has to go to work because they know that they have a tip that they saw Nikki at this house. It's called the cartel house. They know the cartel lives there, so SWAT and everything's going over there, and Dexter discovers that that's the house where the junkie went in, and all hell breaks loose. Badass action scene. Spencer's going crazy. Gunfire goes off and Bobby gets shot in the neck, and he has to be taken to the hospital. And as this happens, Dexter finds the basketball jersey of Nikki. And then they're like, Spencer overacts, and then now for sure Dexter's like, yeah, I know you fucking got your kid, you did this, I followed you, I know everything. So yeah, that was great. That was it. That was episode 8, and that's how it ended, pretty much, I believe. So that was episode 8. Now episode 9, I thought I was gonna do summaries. Episode 9 is titled Blood Drive. I did miss that Saunders confronted Dexter about where he was, and Dexter said, your secret's safe for me. And I think it was episode 7. Anyway, this episode opens up with Brian Moser as an adult now at an old age home playing bingo, and he's looking for his new prey, or he has somebody in mind. That's when we find out. I thought he was looking for new prey, but we find out no, he has somebody in mind for a specific reason. LaGuerta confronts Harry because she found out in the last episode that Harry stole Brian Moser's file, and she's like, who's Brian Moser? As they return to see Bobby in the hospital, because Bobby used to be obviously Harry's partner. And it's discovered that Harry kind of tells her the truth. He doesn't mention Dexter anywhere, but he mentions, that Brian Moser was Laura Moser and the whole thing. He tells her basically everything except the fact that he adopted Dexter, or as we find out, he adopted both of them. But she says she'll keep his secret, but then later on she goes to Camila and she asks Camila to look over the files, and Camila lets her, but Camila was told by Harry already, so she kind of altered it, and she says, don't worry. She kindly repeats, just all Camila is good for is repeating the same thing over and over again, which is like, don't worry, and there's no files about Dexter, but somehow there has to be some files, because how the fuck well, I guess a psychiatrist or something. Because Brian, we find out about Brian a little bit. Yeah, so I find it. Let me see. I wrote this note. I find it interesting. Oh yeah, I wrote this down. I find it interesting that both Brian and Dexter start killing at the exact same time. As Dexter starts becoming his serial killer, if you do the timeline, that's exactly the moment where Brian kills the psychiatrist. Because yes, that's exactly what happened. And these murders that Dexter sensed were a serial killer escalating, all escalated from the first killing his psychiatrist, where he bashed him, he went crazy. Then another, it kept going, the gunshot and everything like that. It's all Brian Moser. Brian is becoming more psychotic, more crazy. He's not as refined as Dexter, and he's looking for Dexter even back then. Which I believe in season 1, there's a line where I don't know if he says he killed Harry, if he's responsible for Harry's death. But there is a line where he says like he came to Harry looking for Dexter, and or something like that. I gotta watch the original series again because it's so good. But it's a good little thing to refresh your memory of it. But they make it work too, because Harry goes to Spencer, flashback, and tells Spencer his relationship with, like, he screwed up the whole case. He had an affair with Laura Moser, and that they're kidnapped, that he knows where they are, the shipping container, whatever. And he goes, okay. He strips him from his badge, makes him a patrolman again. Which obviously, whenever we do the flashbacks of when Dexter was saved by Harry, Dexter's father always had the patrolman outfit, and it made sense, because I was wondering, I was like, this doesn't, you know, he wasn't he a patrolman? Why would he, you know? I said, maybe, you know, they revisionist history, whatever. So, flashback to Harry and Spencer. Is that in the shipping yard? Harry is in uniform. I wrote that. I keep wondering if Sarah Michelle Gellar is like a Dexter. Is she also like killing people? But none of these cases link to that, her doing that. So it's like, but something about her really puts, I don't know, just something about it is off. I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's not. Maybe they just cast Sarah Michelle Gellar just to be this part because she was a fan of the original series, and there's nothing gonna happen with this character. Maybe that's it, but I don't know. I just find it odd that they would cast Sarah Michelle Gellar for this role that's just sporadically shows up and then has nothing. Like, is she gonna be the first? I don't know. It's got to be something like the first spirit. Does Dexter kill? Like, there's something has to be with Sarah Michelle Gellar, because, you know, Dexter sees his father and on Deborah, but maybe there was somebody before that. I don't know. I find it interesting. Dexter brings Deborah to work because Deborah is the goddaughter of Bobby, so she wants to donate blood. It was kind of cute seeing Deborah looking around where she's going to work in the future and where she's going to excel in, and she sees LaGuerta for the first time. LaGuerta's paying her no mind, even though Harry and LaGuerta had conversation on their way to Tampa about Deborah, and Deborah seemed not interested at all about Deborah. I mean, LaGuerta seemed not interested at all about Deborah. So I was like, Deborah then finds Tanya. Tanya says, oh, you're the other Morgan, and kind of encourages her maybe to get into that business, the family business of working for Miami Metro. And Tanya's kind of like somebody that Deborah could look up to as a female, because she also says keep in touch or whatever. So it's kind of like, oh, maybe that's what Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be for, this bridge for Deborah working in Miami Metro. Because later on, Deborah doesn't know what she's going to do anyway, but if she goes home and she gets that voicemail or answer machine message saying from the college that, hey, they're still interested in her, even though she got suspended from school for hitting the other girl, she's that good of a volleyball player, they're still interested to give her a scholarship to go to, who knows, but they're still interested in her. So, but Deborah didn't know that at the time. Saunders approaches Dexter and tells Dexter, listen, man, I need your help. I was with somebody last month. He told me he has HIV, and I got tested, but I haven't got my results yet, and I want to donate blood for Bobby, because if I don't, I'm going to look bad. So Dexter's like, no problem. Dexter takes his blood out and puts Saunders' name, like Saunders donated blood, but it was really Dexter. When Dexter's done with there, Masuka comes in, and Masuka's like, you haven't given blood yet. He's like, needles or whatever. He goes, you got to do it. And he said so much. So basically, Dexter's got drained. Dexter was drained. So Dexter's sitting there. Dexter still plans, even though he was drained, he's going to take out Spencer tonight. He goes to the arcade where Nikki's favorite arcade was, and he does his magic, putting plastic everywhere, and he plans to bring Spencer to this place as he sends Spencer a note saying $5,000 or your secret's out, basically. And Spencer does say Vincent. This fucking Vincent. I don't know if that's the junkie. That's why he said that he thinks it's the junkie. But Spencer takes a gun. He heads over there. We discover we have flashback sequences because Harry and the police, they find Dexter and Brian. And I felt bad because, you know, Harry goes and grabs Dexter first, and it's kind of fucked up. Brian just stays there, but Bobby gets Brian. But still, Dexter's father knew both of them. It was really fucked up in my mind because they're right by the mother's head and shit. And that's where Brian's looking at his mother's body parts all scattered on the floor. And, you know, Dexter's dad's holding Dexter. And then we see Dexter's dad and Doris Morgan are at their house with Brian and Dexter in the background, and Deborah, and a foster care. The state is there talking to them about them adopting the boys. And this is where we discovered that the woman in the beginning of the episode that Brian Moser was talking to, she was the foster woman for the state that was trying to not separate them, because she says, normally we don't like to separate these boys. This is when Doris finds out that they're Laura Moser's kids, and she's an angel, a saint. She takes them. She says, these boys need moms, and she decides to take them in. Later on in the episode, Brian tries to kill Deborah because Deborah's crying, won't stop crying, as Doris is making a sandwich for Brian, or no, for Dexter, actually, because Brian says Dexter wants peanut butter and jelly or something. So she's trying to make that sandwich, and Deborah's crying, and Brian takes a pillow, suffocating little Deborah, and Doris sees it. She's like, what the hell? Like, she goes crazy, and she's like, there's something really wrong with this kid. And then when he's confronted by Harry later on, he goes crazy. He's like bugging out, you're not my father, this and that, and screaming, and then he punches his hand through glass, and they're like, look, we can't take this kid anymore. And they tell the foster mother, and they're like, look, we can't take him. There's something seriously wrong with him. Mentally, he needs help or whatever, and then maybe we could get him. And they go, but we really have gotten close with Dexter, and we really love Dexter, and we want to keep Dexter. And the mother's like, the foster woman's like, and she does it, she separates them. And Brian watches as Dexter goes, I felt so bad for Brian, but at the same sense, there's something seriously wrong with him. But you would think that, how's Harry gonna let Doris do all this, right? She's a housewife, he's at work. She's got 3 kids, and one's got mental problems. I don't know, I feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, what the hell? Yes. So finally, the end of the episode is that Spencer goes to the arcade. He's about to get, he's going to the arcade looking around, and Dexter attacks him, but the needle goes through Spencer's hand. Spencer's looking at, they're fighting. Finally, he gets him on the table. After, it goes through his hand into his neck. He drugs him up, which would never have happened because that needle would have broke. He just went, broke. Dexter goes to trains him on the table and confronts him about Nikki, and he's denying and everything. He's like, you just stop. Like, you're such a good actor. How do you do it? Like, he just doesn't understand how Spencer's magnificent. And then Spencer basically says, I'm not a serial killer. But he gives a reason why he kidnapped his son, which makes no sense whatsoever. Because his wife is such a bitch, he decided to kidnap his son and do this. So maybe he wasn't going to kill Nikki. Maybe he's going to. But Nikki knows, because early in the episode, Nikki says, Dad, I know it's you. And he takes off his mask. He goes, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. So Nikki knows, so he wasn't going to let him go. Anyway, Dexter, he wants to know where Nikki is. And he goes, Spencer says, I'm not going to tell you anything. And if you kill me, Nikki's going to die of starvation. And we all know that Spencer's kind of fucked up. Dexter tries to torture him by cutting his finger to let him know what his son felt like. And he won't give him. So Dexter pretends like he accidentally undid his restraints or cut his restraints a little. So this way Spencer could break loose of his restraints and go where Dexter presumes is going to run to Nikki. But Dexter's already waiting in his car ready to follow him. So that's and then if the episode ends with Dexter killing the woman, the old lady from the beginning of the episode, because he convinced her to go with him to Applebee's because he won bingo. And she says, yeah, I'll go with you. And then he confronts her, says, I'm Brian Moser. And then she's like, ah, and then he hits her. At the end, it ends with her on the roof and him saying, like, you promised me you weren't going to separate us, and you separated us. My brother needs me. And then he seizes a chainsaw on her and she screams, and that's how the episode ends. So all in all, these episodes are pretty good, and I want to see what's going to happen between Brian and what happens with Brian. I don't know how they're going to end this. I don't know how many episodes are on this season, if there's one more episode or not, but I'm truly interested in seeing how they end this entire series, season, because I hope it continues. Actually, I like it that much, although there are corny parts. But yeah, I have everything. I give maybe the episode before the last one 5 out of 5 stars. This one probably 4. And I don't know about the first one, episode 7, 3. Yeah. Anyway, that's my review for all 3 episodes. Sorry I didn't do it when the episodes originally aired, but there was a lot of problems. I just got everything back up and running. Anyway, if you like this video and you like these reviews, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I will talk to you guys next time. Peace.